You hear that?
No.
Neither do I. We were supposed to have an awesome drum solo at the beginning of the podcast, but...
You don't know how to play drums?
I don't know how to... You don't know how to play drums either.
You don't know that? Have you ever seen me try to play drums?
Do you play drums?
Maybe.
No. You don't have drumsticks? You don't have a drum set?
I don't have drumsticks because I couldn't find them. I looked everywhere.
Then how do you play drums if you don't have drumsticks?
With your fingers.
What are you talking about? No.
No. I feel like it's effective. He basically played with his fingers.
No, he played on his desk when we're talking about Christian Bale.
And the movie The Big Short.
The movie The Big Short, which...
Christian Bale learned how to play Pantera drum solo within 2 weeks because he's epic.
Yeah, and then apparently he almost killed himself doing it.
He almost killed himself. He almost became not walkable person.
What?
I haven't had coffee yet. Anyways, he destroyed his leg and apparently tore his ACL and other parts of his leg. And they told him to stop doing the kick drum and all that stuff, but he wouldn't because he's crazy. And so he had doctors on standby.
Yeah, he's definitely committed to acting. So, he's done a lot of crazy things. He was anorexic in The Machinist.
I still need to see this movie because I can't picture this moment.
Well, I've never seen it either. I showed you a picture yesterday. He's crazy anorexic.
Oh, so we're adding that to the list?
Sure.
Why not? Why not? Just add them all on there.
Right. So, movie's Big Short. It's about that financial housing crash. It's got a great cast. It's got Christian Bale, Steve Carrell,
Ryan
Gosling, Brad Pitt, which we didn't mention.
Any other time.
In any of our other
7 takes. Let's just be accurate.
Yes.
Here.
Okay. I'm sorry. We're fixing it. So, yeah, great cast.
I don't know who those 2 guys were, though. One of them looked mad familiar. You know, the ones that work with Brad Pitt? One of them looked mad familiar, but I can't place him. But
he is in other things. The 2 young...
I'm talking about the short one.
Yeah, the 2 young guys that were part of this movie.
Yeah, the ones that, couldn't be part of ISDA because they didn't make billions or something like that. The numbers were astronomical and seemed crazy to me, but you said they were accurate, so I guess that's how that works.
Well, I said I don't know.
They had $30 million and they weren't rich enough. That doesn't seem... But whatever. Are you Googling him right now, or are you Googling ISDA?
I'm Googling ISDA, thank you very much. Because you're on my case about it and I can't find it. Anyway, so the movie starts off and they're talking about what leads up to the housing crash, which is the creation of a mortgage bond and other investments that originally were a good product because everyone paid their mortgage back when they came out, and they turned into crap. So,
because they became not sustainable.
Exactly. Well, you were irate at this point in the you still can't process.
Because it doesn't make sense, and I'm not a math person. People like you, who are finance people, should be able to make this stuff understandable for a layman person like me, but you don't. You act all high and mighty and you talk in these words that people don't understand so that they can't understand you, and then they trust you, and then they get screwed over.
Well, right.
And this movie really did a good job of showing that by having those cameos from Margot Robbie and Selena Gomez, and there were other. Oh, you said Anthony Bourdain.
Anthony Bourdain, the chef.
Yeah, they stopped things and explained it in a way that was oh, well, duh, I understand that.
Oh, right. They're trying to make it relatable. I know I've been guilty of this in terms of if I just want to stop talking to someone, I'll start talking over them.
Oh, really?
And it just makes them have that glassy-eyed look, and they just want to give up on the conversation and leave me alone.
Glassy-eyed look like Michael Burry's glass eye and The Big Short.
That wasn't intentional, but that works out perfectly, actually. So, yes, Christian Bale plays a slightly socially awkward, or very socially awkward to slightly autistic doctor with
genius.
Yes, he's probably a savant. Mm-hmm. He's just he looks and he does all of the numbers, and that's just what he does. He also has a glass eye, which
I needed to know how happened because it looked so good. So I looked everywhere to come to find out there is nothing. There's no CGI, there's no fake glass eye, there's no contacts, nothing. It's just Christian Bale's amazing, and he could do apparently what's called fish eye, I guess, where you look off to one side and with one eye and keep everything else going as a normal human. He's just incredible that way.
I don't understand. How can someone do that?
I don't know, but it was creepy.
Well, right.
Like, it's creepy the fact that he was able to do that is what I mean. I don't mean that having glass eye is creepy. I just want to clarify. Orange is the New Black. He was in Orange is the New Black?
Yeah.
Oh, he was... Have you seen Orange is the New Black?
Yes.
Oh, so he was the girl, the stalker girl? He was her boyfriend.
Yes, her husband, they get married.
Whatever. It was all really, really weird and creepy, but he was her... Oh, I love him. Okay, thank you for showing me that.
You're welcome.
So what we were saying was the guy that was one of Brad Pitt's lackeys is from Orange is the New Black. Just to clarify.
He was one of the independent people that worked for Brownfeld Capital Management. The two
that's
young guys.
Really crappy, and I meant that as I meant it.
Well, they kept getting called Brown Hole.
Yes, because it's very...
Well,
it's a shitty name for a corporation. Pun intended.
Well, to be perfectly fair, Wall Street is kind of that way. It's always stereotypically been a male-dominated industry, and guys are dicks. So
buttholes.
Thank you. That bringing the quality of our podcast up to new heights.
I'm just sticking with the brown. I'm just sticking with it.
So yeah, we go back and then we see Christian Bale find out that they're crap, and then the next scene is I don't even remember what it was.
Christian Bale starts going to a bunch of places to short the mortgages, which everybody was like, sure, you want to buy, like, you want to short like 1 million of these or whatever he did. It was like millions. I don't remember the number.
1.3 billion.
Yeah, it was a lot, and he did it all over town, and they were like, yeah, sure, because they thought he was absolutely insane.
They had to make him something to work it out.
Right, and
it
they
didn't exist.
Bragged so much about it that I don't think this is how it really happened in real life, but they didn't clarify, so I guess it
probably did, because people are definitely, they thought they were making out.
Right, so they bragged so much in real life, or in the movie, that Ryan Gosling's character, I think he was based off of a guy named Jared
Bennett.
Oh, okay, so I didn't make that up. That's true. So he overheard the situation and really wanted to be a part of it, but he couldn't be because he worked for a bank or something of the sort.
Yes, I believe he worked for Deutsche Bank in the movie.
Okay, so he decided to kind of get other people in so he would make a commission off of the sale, but he just couldn't do the sale himself. Right.
So Jared Bennett's an interesting character in this movie because he's the narrator for parts of the movie, and he's also in the movie, which is weird. So they break the fourth wall. Which
I love because it never happens. And I love that he said in one of his interviews that this reminded him of Saved by the Bell from when he was a kid because Zach Morris was always breaking the fourth wall. And I never thought of that. Like, I've watched Saved by the Bell, I don't even know how many times.
Well, right. I mean...
But he does. He breaks the fourth wall all the time. It just never really occurred to me.
It didn't click in my mind either until you just said it, honestly.
But I just love Ryan Gosling. Did you know, by the way, that this is his first movie back after, like, a acting break that he took? I think he took it in 2013, and this was his first movie back.
Why would he take an acting break?
Well, I don't know that, but I just think it's cool that it was, like, 2 years that he took off, and then he came back.
Interesting. So... Steve Carrel only finds out, but before we get to that, we have to talk about his haircut.
You mean the atrocity that is a haircut, or what? I thought it was a wig. You're telling me it's not a wig, but I still
fairly confident it's his hair, actually, that just dyed hair.
Well, first of all, the color isn't normal. That what is that?
It was definitely a dye job.
A bad dye job. Bad dye job. And then the cut, I don't even know. I don't know if it's supposed to make him look stressed or what it was supposed to do, but whatever it was supposed to do...
It was almost a bowl cut.
It was detracting.
Well, it just... he can't be bothered to take the time to go get a good haircut because he's too focused on.
Yeah, but that should have been Michael Burry because Michael Burry does his hair at Supercuts apparently. But his hair didn't look that bad.
Well, right, because Supercuts doesn't royally screw you over.
Okay, well, whatever. Anyways, his haircut was atrocious.
So he finds out because Jared Bennett, Ryan Gosling's character, calls the wrong number. And for this scene, I don't know how this is actually real. Apparently there are two companies in the same building on Wall Street that have the same name.
What was the name? Do you remember?
Front Point.
Okay, so I mean, it's super common.
What's a generic name? Yeah.
It's like saying two John Smiths are in the same building.
But it's a company, and companies can't have the same name because people get sued over that crap all of the time.
Maybe it wasn't trademarked.
Well, that doesn't make sense. It's on Wall Street. How is it not trademarked if it's on Wall Street?
How are you able to get a mortgage with your dog's name?
I don't have an answer for you, and that is criminal. That's outright fraud.
Okay, but asking how they can do things on Wall Street that are normally illegal in normal people world is a little bit weird after seeing this movie, don't you think?
Well, I mean, everyone has always known and assumed that Wall Street has done some less than ethical, shady things.
Well, right, but this kind of confirmed that in a very dark way.
This is one of the things that I don't understand, where people have this, it seems like an implicit level of trust in someone who works on Wall Street or works in finance.
I don't think that's
trust
true.
Your financial advisor. A lot of people trust the person that is their financial advisor without questioning them.
Do you want to break that down for a minute? The name of the person is financial advisor. What other professions do you hear the word advisor in that you're not supposed to have implicit trust?
Well, I can call myself, if I'm a used car salesman, an automotive advisor. It doesn't mean
that. And I would laugh in your face. That's not your professional name, though. Financial advisor is actually what they're given, and I pay you for the specific reason that I do not understand finances, so you need to advise me.
Yeah,
how should I know that you're actually trying to screw me over?
Well, there's a couple things, but you're paying me generally more than you expect to.
But how are we supposed to know that us normal layman people who aren't in with your boys club?
So, full disclosure, I do work in finance, and
I think they got that.
Well, you call me a boring finance guy all of the time, and I don't know how I'm going to get that changed because it drives me up the wall.
I mean, I can switch over to like shady wannabe Wall Street man. I mean, we can work out some nicknames. Do you want?
That's better. No, I can't.
We'll spitball.
Anyway, so public service announcement for the people that aren't sure that listen to the podcast. You want to look for someone who uses the word fiduciary, and you want to be very careful with that word. You want to ask them if they are a fiduciary, not if they consider themselves, or I think of myself, or whatever kind of bullshit thing they say to try to get that word associated with them.
Because if they're not a fiduciary, then they are able to...
Well, other than the fiduciary standard, there's the suitability standard, which means that I just have to pick something off of a list of choices that matches what you told me you want, even if it has a higher fee or I get paid a better commission.
Right. So, I mean, like, to explain it, like, so a regular person can understand, if I ask you for a moderate, I don't know, risk portfolio or something, it could have astronomical fees for me, but be moderate risk and do better for you commission-wise, so you can recommend that to me without letting me know about the fact that there's actually another moderate risk option that would have little to no fees for me, but gets you less of a commission, so you don't even let me know about that, and that's legal, is Correct. What you said.
Yes, I can get something where I make 3-4% as long as it's suitable.
Which charges me more.
Right.
Could be.
It
so I think that's something that people need to understand, is that you could be essentially paying more and giving your financial advisor more money and not even being informed of the other options because that's legal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
people don't understand
let's just keep that as a PSA. Don't do a financial advisor that is not a fiduciary, and not consider himself a fiduciary, but an
unless you are
one.
loaded and you have more money than you know what to do with, if you hear the word annuity, run out the door the other direction.
Right. Okay, so moving forward, so Ryan Gosling calls a wrong number to a business and gets Steve Carrel, I believe.
Well, he gets the trader guy that was talking about his testicles and the large epididymis that was almost like an extra testicle.
You're so fixated on that. Are you jealous of the extra testicle? Did you?
It's not an extra testicle. It's just a part of his.
Makes it bigger. Are you jealous?
Yeah, because everyone wants big testicles.
I don't know what you guys like to.
No, God, why would we want that?
Anyway, so get the guy at Steve Carell's office, and then
they start talking about it, and then they're at first they're making fun of it, and then they're like, wait a second, what's
making fun of the deal, not the testicle.
Making fun of the deal for the wrong number, because he's like, some guy wants to short housing, which is to bet against housing, and then
which is essentially to bet against the American economy.
Right, to bet against people having jobs and being productive. And then the numbers guy, Vinny, who is fantastic, is just like, wait, why would you bet against housing? And then he starts looking into it, and he's like, oh, that's weird. And then Steve Carell comes back to the office, and they set up a meeting, and Steve Carell can't be bothered to put up with any kind of bullshit. He's very direct and straight to the point on everything. He totally calls out Ryan Gosling in the meeting.
In the Jenga meeting? Are we talking about the Jenga meeting?
Because he's like, how much interest? Oh, there's been some interest. And he's literally at the place where he called the wrong number. So you know that there's no interest because he's been laughed out of several offices. Anyway, he uses Jenga to explain CDOs, which are packaged investments of generally crap that didn't sell the first time on its own, so they just package it up with other crap that didn't sell and sell that.
Right.
And so he goes over that. He starts taking out the
subprime loans.
Well, the subprime loans from the bottom, and as he's doing it, he's throwing them away. He's talking about no verification on income, FICO scores below like 550 or whatever it is, and just keeps throwing them in the trash. And then the whole office is just like stunned because they're just like, that this can't, no, that this is not possible. And then the Jenga tower collapses, and they're like, what's that? The U.S. housing market, because that's what's going to happen at some point. And at this point in the movie, it hasn't happened yet, and they start going, wait, what are you talking about? And so Steve Carell wants Jared Vance's character to be right in this case after the meeting because he hates big banks because big banks screw average people.
I don't know that he wants him to be right. I don't think that's fair assessment because he's very concerned about people and it bothers him so much that he doesn't even want to talk to his own wife. He was so stressed about the whole thing.
Well, wait, he knows that big banks generally do things that are ethically questionable. I mean, you have the high credit card interest, you have the check bouncing and so where they don't tell you until after it's happened and all that kind of stuff. It's a little bit shady at times. Wells Fargo was actually just in the news for opening accounts without people's permission.
Not surprising. Right.
So they go down to Florida to investigate this. This is where they meet mortgage brokers. The two guys. Well, first off, they investigate a housing development in Florida, and the real estate agent's talking like, "Well, that family's pretty motivated." Oh, really? Why? Well, neither of them is working, and then they meet this guy who looks like he was just woken up for the day.
The guy with his daughter.
The guy with his daughter, and his landlord used his dog's name to open the mortgage somehow. But I'm not entirely sure of the logistics because
you obviously don't need to prove your identity.
Well, that's just, if you can use a dog's name or a pet's name, there's clearly a problem.
Right, but that's what they were looking for, so.
And then my heart just goes out to that guy because he got screwed. Because he's been paying his rent to his landlord, and the landlord hasn't been paying the mortgage, and he's going to be the one that gets kicked out of the house at some point.
Right, but one of the risks you take from renting.
So, And then they meet the mortgage brokers, the two douchey guys that one of them drives the Mercedes.
You're talking about Schmidt from New Girl, right?
I don't know who that is. I don't know.
The guys that talk about the strippers?
Well, yes, those guys. I know those guys. I don't know Schmidt from New Girls.
Well, he's wonderful and amazing, and he always plays a pretentious guy, but he's amazing. But then there's...
The other guy.
The
blonde guy.
Some Magnuson. What is his name? Something Magnuson? I don't know. I have it written down somewhere. Billy Magnuson, maybe? The other guy.
Yes, Billy Magnuson.
Billy Magnuson, yeah. He was a super young dude on this set, and they said that the actor, went partying all of the time and needed laundry done, so he went on set and he used the laundry and took out whatever was in the washer and put it into the dryer. Come to find out, it was like Steve Carell's like designer suits, and it was like $15,000 worth of wardrobe that he just destroyed. Steve Carell said he like put on one of the shirts and he was like, I couldn't have gotten that fat overnight. Could not have. So yeah, that was.
I still don't understand why you don't dry. I've always dry cleaned suits instead of like washing them. I don't know if that's.
Maybe it was like his understuff for his suits or something. All I know is they said it was like $15,000 worth of wardrobe, and it was all designer stuff.
How do you spend $15,000 on that much stuff to ruin? I know, especially considering it's only one load of laundry, so it can only be like. There's like 6 things.
Right. So.
No, that's insane, and.
But anyway, so they told them that they basically preyed on like strippers is basically what they said. And immigrants.
Because immigrants apparently don't speak English, and as soon as you tell them they're buying a house, they sign wherever you tell them, which is a horrible thing.
Right. Well, and they weren't being very clear. And when they went and talked to one of the strippers, she said that she owned like 5 houses, and that the reason that she was able to do that is because when the teaser rate's over, it's fine because you can always refinance. And she didn't understand the fact that just because you can refinance does not mean that your mortgage is going to go back to the teaser rate at all. Ooh. But she didn't understand that because that wasn't explained.
Well, right. I mean, and then when they're talking to the strippers, Steve Carell has a moment of like, what are you talking about? And you have 2 loans on one property, right? And then we find out she has the 5 houses in a condo. Right. And then he just goes, oh my God. We're all gonna die.
Right. Less dramatically than that, but okay. And so anyways, it goes from there to basically watching as the housing market essentially crashes little by little.
Well, after that, we then go over to the 2 young guys, don't we?
You've kind of taken them out of this podcast every 7 takes that we've done, so I've kind of just avoided it.
Well, the 2 young guys find out in the lobby as they're getting screwed over for the ISDA, and then we find out that they want to learn more about this, and they call
Brad Pitt
on the phone. He used to be a Wall Street trader back in the day, but he is now a little bit of a survivalist nut job, where he grows his own food and lives in a cabin in Colorado, by himself with his family.
Right, so they basically bet against like double B, I think, ratings or something like that. I forget what exactly they bet against.
Well, they start off doing the same things that the other 2 people are doing, Christian Bale and Steve Carell, but then they bet against the double A, the higher.
Yeah, but it started at double B, I think, and then went to double A.
They go to double A because they can't afford the premiums that they're having to pay. So the higher credit rating on the double A's, people don't expect them to go belly up, and so they do that, and they actually make more money by doing that.
Right, because you find out in the movie that the AA rating doesn't mean anything, because you have that scene with the lady with the cataract glasses, and they go in and they say, but how are you still having AA ratings on these things when all of the lower tier loans, I guess is the way to word it, is basically crap, and we all know that it's crap. And she goes, well, right, but if we don't give the ratings that the banks want, then they're going to go to my competitor down the street, so we're just going to give the AA ratings.
I mean, great scene. The cataract glasses was a fantastic choice by them. I don't know if that was actually something that happened or they just put it in to be clever.
Well, Adam McKay, the director, said that it was in the initial script that was written, and he kept it in because he thought it was amazing.
Well, it's fantastic. Whoever whoever came up with that, if it wasn't actually what happened, is a genius.
Right.
I mean, just the government is asleep at the wheel. The regulatory agencies are asleep at the wheel. The banks don't care, and it's just this one cascading thing after another, and it's mind blowing.
Right.
That this was allowed to happen. It's astounding to me that nowhere along the line did anyone go, wait a second, what are we doing?
Right. Everyone was at fault here because there's personal responsibility along with taking out a mortgage. So I do not give away and say, well, it was just the banks.
Well, it's not just the banks, but at the same time, people want to live the American dream, and you can't really fault them for wanting to own a house. I mean, yes, they should understand the terms before they agree to anything, but the average people just want to live their life, go to their job, and raise a family in a house.
But you can't just... I want to own a 3-story house, too. I can't afford to, but I would like to. Does that mean I should? Like, no, you can't tank the economy because of your own selfishness.
Well, I mean, apparently they can.
Well, right, you could. But, I mean, anyways, moving forward.
And then they get to a point where they want to... Because they feel like they're getting screwed because the bond prices that they bet against haven't gone down, even though people are not paying their mortgages more and more and more. And so they go to the rating agency, that I just said. And then they go to Vegas to a conference to size up the competition, I guess, and see what they're betting against. And this is where they meet the slimiest person I think I've ever met. And it's the guy who calls himself the CDO manager. And they talk about that. And this person drives me up the wall and I want him to die from the movie. I don't know, you were irate at this point. Weren't you just wanting to reach the screen and strangle him? I mean, I know I was.
I mean, I just didn't like the fact that he said that he doesn't take any personal risk on these himself. So it's just basically, I don't care what happens with it because it doesn't have anything to do with me.
It was mind blowing that he could be that careless with other people's money. So, then finally the housing market crashes, and then they are now the smartest people on Wall Street, essentially at the end of the movie, right?
They're just the luckiest people on Wall Street because they found a loophole that nobody else found. I wouldn't say they're the smartest people.
Well, they cashed in on a deal of a lifetime, or at least since the Great Depression.
Right. They profited off the American economy collapsing.
Right. And then Brad Pitt's character, when they're making these bets and when the things are going down, has a fantastic speech where he brings some humanity back to what they're doing, where he talks about, stop dancing. You just bet against the American economy. Do you realize what you've done? And they're just happy that they're going to be making money. They don't understand that it's going to be people losing their jobs, their homes.
Of course they understand. Why do you act
like...
Well,
they didn't. They weren't.
Of course they
weren't
understand.
thinking about it in those terms. They were thinking about, well, we're going to be making money.
They were thinking about it in those terms. They didn't care. They were just like all of the other people. They just happened to be on the other side of the deal in this moment.
Right. Well, and then Brad Pitt brought them back down, and in that speech with that.
Because that's clearly why he got out of the situation, out of the financial industry in the first place, is because he didn't like the shady politics that were going on.
I mean, other than being a crazy conspiracy nut, Brad Pitt is a fantastic person in this movie.
Right, he is. But anyway, okay, you're at 30 minutes, so.
So we're at 30 minutes, so we got to wrap this up. What was your overall thought for the movie?
I like the way they did it. I like that they made this something that everybody could understand, and they made it a terrifying situation relatively funny. I
would tend to agree. They made it easy to follow. It is a fairly complex thing that people don't want to know or don't want to take the time to know. And they did make it funny in times, even though it's talking about complete, total financial and economic disaster across the board. And then that's basically the movie. They're just recapping and showing that what happened and the fact that there were no consequences for any of the people responsible at the banks, and how we just all let it slide into the past, and we haven't forgotten about what happened, but we've forgotten about the level of fraud that happened to cause this problem, and no one got punished really, other than the everyday guy, like the guy earlier from his landlord's dog scene, where he's now homeless because he's living out of a car at the end in the credits. And it was just like, just awful. So what would you rate this movie?
Probably like an 8.
I would say probably 7.5.
You always say that, no matter what the movie.
You always say 8, so
because I like most of the movies we're doing.
That's a decent rating. Is not a good rating? I don't know.
7 is like a C.
It's a C plus. Okay, fine, 8.
Okay, so what are we doing next week?
Well, next week. We're having a hosting podcaster join us.
A guest. What is a hosting podcaster?
A guest to join us.
Yes, and he is bringing the movie Brooklyn, I believe.
Yes, which neither of us have seen.
Or even know what is.
Really, I'm not entirely sure. But it should be an interesting time because that's kind of a blank slate.
Right. So I just wanted to end with giving a few of our shout outs. I want to thank Rachel St. Pierre for our logo and thank Jake at Athos Music for our intro and outro. I'll see you next week with Brooklyn.